What's going on, headbangers? Today I'm spinning the wax with Adrienne Cowan of Seven Spires, and we're going to be listening to Kamelot's Epica. Don't go anywhere, it all starts right now. Hey everyone, it's your friendly neighborhood headbanger back for another episode of Spinning the Wax. My name is John Garcia, aka Stay Puffed, and today we're going to be listening to Kamelot's Epica with Seven Spires' Adrienne Cowan. Adrienne is one of the most talented and busiest vocalists that you'll ever hear. She's a multifaceted musician, singer, composer, songwriter, performer, keyboardist, everything under the sun basically, and she, along with her bandmates Jack Kosto and Peter Albert Durena, have made Seven Spires a must-listen band regardless of whether you're into symphonic metal or not. If you just love an emotional story with a catchy hook, this band is for you. She's a graduate from the Berklee School of Music and spent most of the summer of 2024 traversing the world with Avantasia, in addition to performances with the Symphony and her own band. In this wide-ranging talk, Adrienne and I discuss her vivid memories discovering herself with this album and how it still teaches her about who she is to this very day. She also discusses about how her parents encouraged her musical endeavors from a young age and how she had to learn the hard way that her worth isn't tied to social media views. We also dive into our struggles with ADHD, anxiety, and the bouts of depression that come along with that, and how we've taken the steps to try and live with our conditions as best as we can. We get so lost in the conversation that we don't even realize that the album ends. So, without further ado, please welcome Adrienne Cowan. Adrienne, welcome. Thank you for coming on and for agreeing to do this today. I'm very stoked to chat with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm super happy to be here, and that was a very nice introduction.
Well, first, I guess I should say, before we get into the music and listen to everything, I should ask, how are you doing? Because I know that you've been busy as fuck. We're recording this right now, right before your new album comes out, so I know that you're in the process of doing all the press and everything from that, on top of doing everything like you do, gallivanting all around the world, playing shows everywhere. So how have you been doing the last few months?
Well, that's a great question. At the moment, I'm resting for the last 3 days. I played some shows with Avantasia. We have some days off, and then I will return to the German circus.
Oh boy!
Tomorrow, actually, we will play some shows in Spain. But to be honest, I mean, I'm very tired. I've been literally all around the world since January. I was filming videos in Europe, in Canada, in North America. I played this crazy show in Tokyo with the Tokyo Philharmonic and the Sonic Symphony.
Wow, yeah.
Rock band. Super cool. We did a March tour. We did a Europe tour in March with Spires. We did shows with Kamelot, fittingly, in April. And then had choir rehearsals for Avantasia. I was resting in Norway for 2 weeks. I'm really trying to rest because I can't go on like this unless I make the effort to fucking relax. Yeah, I'm sure we can all relate.
Yeah, seriously, and it's so important because I follow you on your Instagram account, and it's always all over the place to be like, I wrote this song and I did this and I'm going here and I'm going with that. And I think it's cool, especially because I got into the band on Emerald Seas. I think it just was a random Bandcamp thing or something, and I've been following you since then, and it's been really cool to watch you have your fingers in wearing so many hats, your fingers in so many different pies, and you're just everywhere, which is both good, but I think sometimes you're just fuck, I wish I wasn't so ambitious and wanted to do so much stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I really like everything I do.
Of course.
So I feel very lucky, I feel very lucky basically because I like everything I do, and I mean, it's a rare and beautiful thing to get to do what you love for a living. But wow, even then we have limits. And I think everybody is allowed to complain about their job.
Yeah.
No matter how much they love it. And my complaint is I'm tired. So
and look, there are many worse complaints to be having and everything like that, but especially nowadays, we've ended up mental health has been a huge thing that we've been talking about on this podcast a lot, which I'm happy to discuss and everything like that. But I know burnout for everybody right now, just because of like all the shit that's going on in the world, how much social media has been going on in our lives, how we can't get away from our fucking phones most of the goddamn time, you know, on top of just feeling the need to, you know, work and be productive and do all this other stuff for like expectations that both, you know, you heap on yourself and things that you think other people have before you're like, no, fuck the expectations everybody else has. But yeah, it's definitely really important to rest. And I'm glad that, and I know that you do this every periodically when you can. It's just like, take a few days or a week or however long it is to be like, nope, I'm gonna watch like 4 seasons of one show in a weekend and just like sit on the couch and like not do a single fucking thing.
Yep. I haven't been doing a whole lot of show watching. Lately, I've been putting my phone in my pocket and only using it to take photos. I like to go for walks, touch grass. The time in Norway was amazing. I mean, where I was staying, like you go to the balcony, you can see the city, you see the fjord, you can see the ocean every single day.
A couple years ago, it was the same thing with Oslo. They took us to this like rooftop bar or something like that you could just see the whole fjord, all of the mountains, basically the entire city of Oslo. And it was like, you know, Norwegian summers, which are just so mild and temperate and comfortable. And it was just, oh my, I can't wait to go back. I haven't explored anywhere else around Norway, but Oslo is fantastic. And I've heard nothing but great things about Bergen and like the rest of the country.
Yeah, I basically had the same experience the first time I went to Oslo, and I was like, wow, this is so great. And like, I want to be here forever, blah, blah, blah. And all the local, like all the Norwegians were like, this is actually the kind of the worst part. So if you like this, hey, come check out the rest of it. And I was like, don't mind if I do.
During COVID, I was watching I think it was the Oslo to Bergen like train cam. I would just put on like music, smoke a little bit of weed, and then put that on the TV, and it was like I was moving, you know, like I was actually getting out of my house to go somewhere. So I feel like I know that that train route really, really well now.
I'm sure you do. Man, those were some times, huh?
Dude, like I was thinking about it recently. It's like, I mean, we're 4 years removed from that, and both how it feels a million years ago and also like no time has passed at all.
Yeah, it's weird. I think somehow we're still bearing the scars of it without even knowing. I feel much more grateful for everyday parts of my job, like being able to travel. And to be honest, I still wear a mask on the plane just because after like restrictions lifted a little bit and we still had to do that, I noticed that I don't dry out nearly as badly on the plane, and I'm also not inhaling other people's farts or their gross coughs. You know, sometimes the plane just like sounds like a hospital ward and people are like and to be honest, like it didn't bother me that badly before the pandemic, and then we had to do that, and then since then I'm like, ew, don't breathe on me. That's and I don't think I'm particularly germophobic, but the fact is like I need to be able to breathe and sing. That's my whole job. So that's gross. Thank you. I don't want your snot in my food. That's all I have to say about that.
Do you feel like you have kind of like grown an immunity from being around like in a petri dish all the time from like dirty festivals, planes, travel, old hotels, vans, stuff like that? Or is it still like, you know, you're still going to get sick no matter what?
I don't know. That's a good question. I feel like I'm much more aware of the things that can affect me. So for example, like van tours or like RV tours are still kind of tough. Like I love to sit in the front seat with the driver and like, you know, when we're driving like through NorCal across the borders to Oregon and all through the Pacific Northwest, there's that one passage, you know it.
Yes, I do. It's like watching the train videos.
Exactly. And I have insomnia. So like sometimes it's just so great to stay up late and like look at how great it is, even if I can't see that well. But every single time I do that, the air conditioning that's blowing at me from these rental vehicles is probably like full of black mold or something. So it's just blowing directly on my face. I know that's going to get me sick. Do I have a stronger immunity from festivals and stuff? I don't know. But I for sure know what's going to mess me up. And I avoid those things as best I can.
As best you can. Sometimes there's just no way around it. Maybe science will get into that. Like, do metal musicians and like touring heavy musicians have a stronger immune system than the general populace? Get on it, science.
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, like, don't they talk about like kids need to play outside so that they can roll around in the dirt and whatever. I mean, I'm literally an adult rolling in the dirt now. So
right. Although I think of my friends that like have kids that are just constantly sick around like fall, like right when it turns fall and right when it turns summer, because their kids are just petri dishes that are sticky and gross and like carry diseases and germs all over the place. So
the people that I work with who are parents, when they show up to rehearsal and they're sick, I'm like, from school? I knew it. Don't breathe on me. You need me to do this so that I can do my job, so that we can all be happy and do what we were brought here to do.
Well, speaking of doing what we were brought here to do, thank you for that segue.
Hey, you're welcome.
Let's talk about Kamelot. So you gave me a choice of albums that you wanted to listen to and made me choose. So you chose the album Epica by Kamelot. Which is probably one of the few Kamelot albums that I've like actually listened to in full. This one being the one after this too was Black Halo. I think the one with Shagrath and Simone Simons on it.
Yes.
Why?
I almost sent you that one.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So we'll get into that as we go on, because I have some questions as it relates to this album too. But why do you love this album so much?
I honestly could not tell you. I found Kamelot when I was maybe 16 or 17. I was living in England, going to school in Guildford. There's a music school there called ACM, the Academy of Contemporary Music. And this was in the days when like going to the record store was a thing that you could do for fun. And I would go like after school and see if anything caught my eye. And there was one day that I was just like browsing, and I found the album Poetry for the Poison from Kamelot. And I looked at it and I was like, this looks like something I would probably enjoy. I have no idea. So I bought it. And boy, it sure was. So I did the whole deep dive, and I bought most of their discography since then, or like shortly after. And there's a certain era of Kamelot that is just so dear to my heart. But I think Epica has the most bangers. Somehow, I also think that it was a turning point in my life. I think I was listening to this album in particular, and I was on a chilly spring holiday, like school holidays, with my parents. We went to Venice, and I was listening to this album so much, and I got the first email that I had applied for Berkeley, which the music school in Boston, and I got the email that they wanted to offer me a scholarship based on my songwriting abilities, so it was a partial scholarship. And so there was that, and there was just like walking around in Venice in the cold rain, dressed in a certain way that made me feel good, and observing everything around me with this album as a soundtrack. And everything felt right. And I felt so much like myself, and there it was. Yeah, that's why I picked this album.
I've got a big smile on my face, because so much of what you just said, both I could relate to, I loved, and also is like a lot of the reason why I wanted to start doing this project in the first place. So two things you said that stuck out to me. One, just being the fact that you remember literally like everything about like that moment, because like obviously getting accepted into Berkeley is like a huge deal. Being out there and like being in Venice, tied to its own memories that you would have had, just for the fact that, being on a trip with your parents and stuff like that. But being like, you literally painted me a picture to where I can like see you walking down. You still look how you look now. I don't know what 16-year-old Adrien looked like, but like, just like I could see you walking down Venice in the rain, like listening to that. And I just think like that's example of how powerful music is, that it doesn't just like transcend like your brain or what you're hearing, but literally like you have a moment in time like photographed in your mind with a soundtrack because of something that affected you so much. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, to build on this, I think at the time I was mostly doing like rock music and some like sleaze metal, and I was in an after school program at the music school led by Nick Meyer, who was playing along with Jeff Beck. But anyway, this guy was it was the metal workshop, so every Monday evening all the metalheads from school would get together. We would play one song that this guy picked, and so I was discovering myself as a metal musician, as a singer. I knew at the time, like 16, 17-year-old Adrienne was like, I'm happy with what I'm doing, but I want to do something more, something a bit darker, a bit more theatrical, because something is missing. And during that time, during that trip, I remember that I packed many like frilly like poet shirts and like a frock coat in like late 19th century style. I still had the blonde streak, and my hair was a bit bigger. And anyway, was wearing tons of rings, and it was like I could even say that was the first time that I felt that the artist that I am now really solidified for me.
Wow.
Because I spent a lot of time like making mood boards and like thinking like, oh, these artists, I want to make these ingredients into my sound. But being there with that soundtrack, in those clothes, in that state of mind, with that offer, everything was like, here you are.
Yeah, just like a confluence of moments that sound like it's just like kind of like a form, like almost like a big bang to where you are right now.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know, it's really hard nowadays because I feel like in some ways us that are like really, really passionate about music, whether it's like someone like me who, you know, listens to it as much as I do, or someone like you who are like, you know, performs it and lives it and everything like that. Or we're kind of like druggies in a way, where it's like we have that feeling, right, that we felt when we discovered these bands for the first time, and when we were like 15, 16 or whatever it is, and we're always kind of chasing that, and then we don't always get close to it, but sometimes there's a band that like reminds us what, and then we spend another like 4 or 5 years trying to chase that sound again and everything like that. But I love it when just something kind of comes together as like something you didn't even know that was like exactly perfect for your tastes and what you wanted to listen to. And sometimes you can't plan that, and sometimes you can, but they got you. Now look at you. You're playing with them and singing with Roy Khan on your albums and like a bunch of other projects. And it's funny the way the world works sometimes, you know?
It really is. And I have to say, because of this band, and maybe specifically this album and a few others, so Sasha Paeth is the producer behind this band, and he also mixed the first four. So the first 3 albums and the first EP from Seven Spires, because I loved what he did on this. And so I wrote to him completely cold at the ripe age of 18, and I was like, "Dear Mr. Paeth, blah blah blah, would you please do this thing?" And he was like, "Yeah." So I have probably maybe this album to thank for where I am now, because he's also the reason that I think having him work on our first record really helped us. Like, it's one important person's stamp of approval, so like that means, okay, let's check it out because this guy worked on it, and he's the reason that I'm in Avantasia, and he's just opened so many doors to me. And it's really weird because you talked about singing with Roy Khan, which is super cool, and not that many days ago at Sweden Rock, Tommy Karevik joined Avantasia to sing Dying for an Angel, and we had just played a few shows together like at the end of April, and I knew that he was coming, but I had forgotten because life is crazy. And then he was there in our backstage, and I was like, "Oh yeah, wait, I just saw, wait, and you know what the fuck?" But this was all like internal, because, you know, I want to play it cool. I don't want to freak him out. He's an amazing singer. I'm not trying to be weird at all. And I'm sure that he has, especially like as a woman, like I know how it feels when like guys come at me in a certain way, and I like don't want to give that energy at all. And like I'm not here to be anything like that. What an incredible singer. Yeah. And I don't want to be weird at all. So in my mind, I was like, Tommy Karevik's here. And outside, I was like, "Hey man, what's up?"
I think we should also mention that like Sasha has worked on just about every single goddamn like power metal and symphonic band that you release that has basically ever come out. I mean, like Epica, Rhapsody of Fire, Ed Guy, the list goes on. And so to have someone like that in your corner, that's really incredible. And I also think it's just a testament to, you know, your work ethic and what you've been doing since a very young age as well.
We're still working together, and I still consider him basically like family. And it's wow. The world is weird, and I'm very thankful.
Yeah. Well, the world is weird. I wouldn't say that this album is weird. I gave it a quick spin yesterday when you said like, "Hey, these are the albums that I wanted to listen to." And I hadn't listened to it in full. I probably since I was like 16 or 17, because I was telling you before we got on, but I got like really into a power metal kick when I was about that age as well. Like Iron Maiden is my favorite band ever, and that led me into like, you know, Blind Guardian, Iced Earth, Primal Fear, and then all down the rabbit hole into Edguy, Stradivarius, all that other stuff. So I listened to this, but Kamelot has never been a band that has been, you know, in my steady diet or anything like that. But Center of the Universe is such a you were talking about the amount of bangers on this album, like Center of the Universe and where is it? Edge of Paradise? Oh my God, I'm sure that we'll get to that in a little while. But this, I can definitely see a parallel between, you know, what they did here and eventually kind of the style and the storytelling and like concepts that Seven Spires does as well, to get in the really theatrical, you know, storytelling vein, which I think is like really, really cool, because it doesn't sound like, oh yeah, Seven Spires just copied Kamelot or whatever, but it's like you can trace the inspiration from there, which I always love when I'm listening to bands, new or old.
I mean, I also like that. I think in particular, this was the first band that I saw that did like interludes and like cinematic setting of the scenes with like the sound of people walking and like, you know, a street musician and somebody singing under their breath and stuff like that. So that absolutely inspired a lot of stuff, particularly on Emerald Seas. It's also, I'm not surprised that Kamelot wasn't so much on your radar, because in terms, like in the grand scheme of power metal, you have bands like the ones that you said, and then you have things that are a bit darker, a little bit more melancholy. Also, I feel like they have a certain progressiveness to them.
Yeah.
So I don't, it's weird to think of them as a power metal band, but at the same time, I don't know what else you would really categorize them
exactly. But I just think that speaks to where they were as musicians, to where that they could pull in all these different sounds where it's speed metal and it's kind of thrashy, but it's also symphonic and theatrical, but it's also just like heavy and straight away heavy metal. And I don't know, it's just a fucking good album. We're going to say that a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
Without further ado, let's crack into this. This is Epica by Kamelot. And you're talking about like the scene setting and everything like that, hearing the crackling fire fade in to kind of like get you going.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the sound of like waking up and the clocks and everything, it's beautiful. It's great. I can't even say anything coherent, because what a great album.
How familiar are you with King Diamond's discography?
I'm ashamed to say, not very.
No, don't be ashamed. I was just curious. Very different style, but also very theatrical, especially with his solo stuff. If you haven't listened to the Puppet Master, which I think came around maybe about the same time, check that one out, because it is very theatrical, has a lot of these type of like scene setting deals, and it's like you could literally, like, it could be a play, in my opinion. And
okay.
But yeah, there's a lot that remind me of that, and now we're in the Center of the Universe, and I just want to just like take off running down the street. Like you mentioned the Sonic Symphony, I want to run like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Gotta
just
go
like
fast.
loops and everything like that.
This is, I love this about Kamelot, with like a lot of their symphonic power metal anthems. They put the chorus melody as like a guitar lead at the beginning. Wow, it's so good. And then when the chorus arrives, you're already familiar with the melody, and it's like just hits harder.
Yeah, well, you do that with your songwriting a lot as well.
Guess where I learned it from?
Oh, I wonder.
Okay, I do love the staccato string parts. That it's such a cool way to like catch your ear and like link things. It doesn't take up so much space that it's distracting, but it's like it just carries you over in a very like very nice way.
Yeah, and with the rhythm too, because it's like a galloping rhythm, but it's not quite a galloping rhythm, so they're moving it around. And I love the pace that they have on this album. And that's one of the things that appealed to me with a lot of power metal, is just the fact that we're gonna get up and go like we're riding that horse with the wings into battle and everything like that. And even though this is kind of very melancholy, sad, take on the Faust tragedy, there is a lot of just like, yeah, like I want to go into battle on this song. Let's go.
Totally. Yeah, I think interesting that you mentioned the pacing of the album too. I think the interludes, I love this bridge so much. So good.
I did want to ask, actually, because I know that you started music from a very, very, very young age. I know you've forgotten more about music than I will ever know in my entire life. But, like, you know, it seems like you knew what you wanted to do in some way or fashion from, like, a very early age. Is that fair to say?
I knew basically my whole life that I wanted to be on stage.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when I wanted to be a paleontologist or an astronaut or, I don't know, a few other things. I also was very interested in visual art, like ceramics and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I think I was 3 years old when I had my first performance. But yeah, I mean, my parents were both arty in their own ways. My mom basically put me in a lot of art classes, took me to museums, and she's also an artist in many mediums. Not only like traditional art, but she's a fantastic chef as well. And my dad was a DJ in the 80s. So I think my feeling is that they really wanted me to have the chance to explore what I'm good at, what I love. And yeah, if I did, they told me that I showed them that I was willing to put in the hard work. So they're like, all right, do you want to study this for your degree? I remember vividly the day that my dad asked me, like, do you want to study music for college? And I was like, this didn't even occur to me that it could be a possibility.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I took 1 year of classical guitar when I was 10, I think. And then I put it down for a while. And then I was teaching myself again. I was like 14 or 15. Also a great song.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was playing every day, also playing piano every day. And yeah, I was sitting on the floor in the living room. And my dad was like, do you want to do this for college? And that was like a really cool thing. You don't normally hear that from, like, the typical story is like, oh, well, my family and my friends were like, you can't do it, blah, blah, blah. You know,
yeah.
And my family was like, dude, fuck yeah, go do it. I mean, they sent me to school for it. I think this was like the way that they thought they could facilitate the best chance possible for me to, have a successful career, whatever that means.
They start this album just like, hey, we're going for it. We're giving you the 40 seconds or whatever it is to get into the scene, and then we're just, here's into the story, here's into the emotions. And then actually, and that's another thing that I think that you've probably picked up from this to use in Seven Spires is the amount of like tugging at the heartstrings and the emotion and the feeling that these songs make you feel, because Seven Spires definitely is, I would say, an emotional band.
For sure, a super emotional band. And I mean, I'm a super emotional person, but I always felt stuff when I listened to Kamelot. And I think it was the feeling that I had from Poetry for the Poisoned was they're saying everything that I wanted to say, but didn't have the tools for. And that very much holds true for this album as well.
So what sticks out to your mind, in your mind about this song the most?
Discovery, it's the chorus. I mean, it's like a cop-out answer, but it's not like a typical, like, here are the rhymes, here's the hook, blah, blah, blah. It's, I must take your farewell, carry my destiny. Na, 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 na. So it's like, it's all storytelling. And I think that's so cool. I mean, I also like to write pop songs in a metal context, but like this approach to choruses is so beautiful to me. And I think you can really bring home an idea or a feeling or a scene or something with this style. And so, for example, a song like Succumb on Emerald Seas, I did exactly that because that it's just one of those things that needs to be explained in this way. I can't be like, I don't know, everybody's talked about that topic in their own way, and most people approach it like we're in the club and there's shawty's looking good. But I want to say, so I succumbed to cinnamon, sweat, and rum, laughing with stars in your eyes and your hair undone. This is like, the chorus isn't like the hook. The thing that is catching you is, look at this beautiful soul. I hope that this isn't the last time that I see you. Yeah.
Sorry, now the next song has started.
Yeah, it's like a good riff, right?
This right here, that's where I was like, that's a Jeff Loomis phrase right there. That's crazy. And
it totally is. Also, that na 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 is very close to something on Emerald Seas as well, which I did not realize until just now. So this will be our secret. Don't tell anybody.
I won't tell anybody that happened. I haven't been in like bands or like actively writing or doing like creative music things in a very, very long time. But that would happen to me sometime where it's like, wow, I just ripped off Anthrax and didn't even know it. Fuck it.
Not again.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I used to do some Twitch streams, actually quite a lot over the years. And there's one song, I think it's The Trouble with Eternal Life. So every time I would sing this on Twitch streams, the chat would,
don't mind me, I'm just gonna air drum and headbang while you're talking about this.
The chat would always write like, I can't believe it's not Kamelot. So that's like the unofficial title of that song.
Incredible.
Yeah. I love the way he sings. Soothing yet so violent. Like he really chews on the words. It savors everything.
Yes. Which reminds me of when I was listening to this last night, there's so much Symphony X in this, which is one of those bands I really did get into in that time. And so like very much that, like, I love Russell Allen's delivery because you're right, he chews on every syllable and stuff like that. And Roy does the same thing right here, where it's like, it's not just about like being on pitch or the melody, but feeling the lyrics and like experiencing them and living them out, which especially in something that's supposed to be a concept album with a story. And, you know, he's doing multiple characters throughout this album, changing his voice, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. It's so important to just like be, you know, and just like, yeah, we're not just going to get there. We're going to live every part of this album and all of this music.
You have to feel every single detail. Yeah. And I never thought about this, but now that you've said it, it's also like my approach to like recording and performing vocals. I basically don't take on songs, or I don't write songs that I don't like feel.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for me to keep lyrics in my brain if I don't emotionally connect to them. And if I have to, then I just like find something in my life that maybe relates to one line, and then I can remember the song. But I have to feel it when I sing too. And so good. I love his falsetto. Wow. It's like an angel. Wow. I hope he doesn't watch this. It's going to be so embarrassing.
It's just fangirling over it. We'll send him the audio only version to kind of tamp down on some of that. But so I actually am glad that you said that about kind of like your approach to, you know, having to feel the music and everything like that, because I agree, and I could see that from, you know, listening to your discography and everything like that. Because even like speaking of Roy Khan on God's Debauchery, the one that you did with him, was it This God Is Dead?
This God Is Dead.
The spoken word part towards the end of that song, I feel like could be very, very like cheesy and cringy for like a lot of people to do, but because like you can feel the tension in your voice and like the emotion and everything like that, it works. And like that, I think, is like a microcosm of kind of what you were talking about, where even something as simple as a spoken word line feels emotional and feels like something more than just like, oh yeah, we're just gonna like talk about or say some lyrics or something, you know?
Right. Totally, yeah. I mean, it would be super cheesy if I was like, Guide of the Lost, Guardian of the Broken. But I want to be like, Bring of Peace in Final Hours.
Yeah.
And okay, so I told you that, like, I think I basically always wanted to be on stage, but I used to think that I wanted to be on the West End or Broadway or something. And so I read tons of acting books, took classes and stuff. And, you know, that didn't really work out. But what I took away from that was thinking about the micro expressions and the body language and the things that happen to people's voices when they feel a certain thing, and employing that to like saturate a vocal performance even more with certain feelings. And I mean, when I hear myself do that, sometimes I'm already feeling it, so it doesn't naturally, but if I think I already feel this, I have these tools to make it even more so, and then I hear it as I'm doing it, and then I actually start feeling it. And then the cool thing is, like, because humans are such empathetic creatures, like, if I'm singing something that's real fucking sad and it kind of sounds like that, then somebody's going to hear that and be like, oh, now I'm sad, but because of my stuff, and not like, oh, I feel so sorry for her, but like, oh my God, that's exactly how I feel. And so it becomes this like exchange of like we bear our wounds, our scars together, and then we don't feel alone in it. Anyway, now we're going on a whole different topic.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
No, I love it. And while you were talking about, I believe that we have gone into the ballad so far, Wanderer, which is also like, speaking of an emotional song and like feeling that, you know, like almost like that tickle in your throat that you feel when you're about to cry.
Also a great chorus.
That's one of the things that draws me to this type of music, actually. It's not like, obviously, like, you know, with pop songs and stuff like that, yeah, the chorus is the part, but like building into just like a good anthemic, theatrical, bombastic, flamboyant, like whatever adjective you want to use, chorus is one of the things that keeps me coming back to these style of bands. Because like, I love my death metal, Adrien. I love my grindcore. I love my like progressive black metal and like all of that other stuff. But sometimes I just want to listen to a dude in a puffy shirt with really long flowy hair and a high voice just sing to me emotions. You know, is that so wrong?
I completely agree. And you know, like for me, this is like the natural progression of like, I don't know, this is like bard shit, but in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Because those people were telling stories, and I mean, in like folk type of music, we have like a different approach of songwriting. So you have the refrain instead of a chorus, and so it's like you sing the whole verse, blah 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 blah, and then there's the one line that always comes back, and each time you have a second verse, a third verse, that line is recolored with whatever the fuck you just said. And I think that's incredible storytelling, and that was also, I guess, in some ways how history and important events were passed down. And so I think it's only natural for us to want to hear a chorus like this more than like shouties out here looking good. And you know what? I love my fair share of shouties looking good.
Yeah, of course. Nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it.
There's no guilt. There's only pleasure. I love it when shouties looking good. But I also love it when silently we wander, blah, blah, blah. Wow. It touches me in a completely different way. And it's a bit more like heartfelt. It touches me in the soul. You know?
Yeah. It's like, you know, that feeling that you get from a really emotional book, but without having to spend time, you know, reading or anything like that, you know?
Yeah. Oh man. I love spending like weeks with a book, and then you finally read the last bit, and then you close it and you're like,
who am I now? What do I do with my life?
Yeah, who are my friends are in these pages, and so is my identity, and I don't know what to think. And then you go back and read it again because you have to just experience the adventure again.
Yeah, so talking about ADHD, I've found, especially since the pandemic, I've had a really hard time focusing on books, which has never been that big of a thing for me because like I've always liked to read, but I think just with the anxiety and everything else, it really threw off my way because I'm very feast or famine. I'll either like read 5 books in a row or, you know, go 3 months without even touching one. But what really got me into it recently was American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I hadn't read it before.
Oh, I love Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, I hadn't. I know I would love all of his stuff, but I haven't delved into him again. Kind of like Kamelot. I was like, fuck it. Like I found it at a bookstore for like $5. I was like, I'm gonna get through. Read it cover to cover and was like, same thing. I finished and was like, okay, now what do I do?
I had the same problem with reading. I was a big reader as a kid. Also, I've never heard this term. What'd you call it? Feast or famine? Feast or famine?
Feast or famine. Yeah.
I love it. That's totally me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I was a kid, I'm an only child and I was a nerd. I still am. I read so much. And then there was a point where I just wasn't reading anymore. And then as an adult, I was like, I want to read. I miss reading. And I couldn't do it. And it was so annoying because it's like I lost part of my identity. But after I started ADHD meds, I was able to read again. Speak, my friend, you look surprised. I thought you knew.
This might be one of my favorite songs on this album. It's just like I don't know, the way that Roy gets into like Mephisto's kind of flamboyancy and like almost like Disney villain-esque that he puts on his performance and just like, oh, I love it.
Yeah. Oh, I really love when he does the villain thing too. In general, I've been a big fan of like flamboyant villains. I later learned the term clear-coded, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. Yeah, the whole Disney villain thing, big fan.
Yeah.
I mean, if you couldn't tell from the art that we make.
Yeah.
But yeah, I super love when he's evil. I also love when there's something about, you know, the song Abandoned
Yes,
by
yeah, that's
Kamelot?
on the next one, right? On the next album,
Yes.
I believe.
And his voice just sounds like a cello, and it's so incredible when he's like, nightfall came. This this is the other, it's like the not evil one, but it's like the like raw and broken and like, here's my heart. Let's all look at it and poke at like the things that are bruised. Wow. Also, another thing that I thought about Roy in the last couple of years is that I listened to like Conception, like old Conception albums.
Yeah, his band before he joined Kamelot.
Yeah, exactly. And he used to sing so high. And then as the Camelot albums went on, he was singing lower and lower and like getting more comfortable. I don't know if he was already, I don't know. I don't know why, but he was sitting more in this like low, warm, dark register. And I think that's also super rare in the power metal subgenre because
Very much
everybody's like,
so.
ah!
Yeah.
And very few people are like, we're gonna sing down here and you're gonna like it.
Yeah, and Camelot is just one of the, like, you think that they would be from like fucking like Germany or Sweden but they're from Tampa, Florida, you know, and like you think that they should be singing like high up here, and but so like I don't know, it's just kind of like just such a different flavor from so many other bands, because like as much as I, you know, and especially with bands that have been going around forever, like I love Stradivarius, right, but I feel like some of their albums can kind of like run together after a little while, like when you've had so many of them and everything like that. And I just love that I mean, I'm not as familiar with Kamelot and can't speak to like their, you know, their newer discography or anything like that, but it's just interesting to hear this flavor just stand apart from so many other bands, but also feel like it's part of, you know, speed metal and power metal and heavy metal and like all these other different genres instead.
Yeah, totally agreed. And I mean, even thinking about them standing out from like a speed metal band, for example, like they're all very good at their instruments, but still nobody's playing like crazy Malmsteen stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody's really, I don't want to say nobody's shredding because they are. But do you know what I mean? Like nobody's like showing off in a certain way. And it's really about like the stories and the lyrics and the vocals and wow.
Yeah.
Like, but you get what I mean, right?
Yeah, there's no like virtuoso stuff, because like again, I mentioned Symphony X. That's a band that like just way more in, you know, the Michael Romeo shredding, string skipping, like, you know, we're gonna take a 3-minute break so just that he can shred for a little bit. Like Kamelot doesn't really do that, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, right? Because that's one of the reasons why I love Symphony X. But you're right,
and
like,
they totally could if they wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like it's serving the song.
Yeah, it's serving the song. Exactly. Yeah, because I don't want to go on record saying that they don't shred or can't shred. That's not at all the case. But the point is, like, I really feel like they're so about serving the song and like serving the feeling. And that's something that I think now here's a boomer take. Like, you know, people are like, oh, you play guitar so fast, you have no soul, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like a lot of metal bands in general, am I going to regret saying this? I don't know, whatever. I feel like there are many approaches to delivering art and making music and being in a metal band, whatever. But not everyone is so not only focused, but masterful when it comes to presenting a feeling and a story. And that's totally my bag too. Yeah. I mean, that's 100% like why I make music. And I don't think I realized that was something that I loved about Kamelot until this very moment.
Oh, wow.
So this is cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I do think, like, especially nowadays, given our climate, you know, there are a lot of budding musicians or young musicians, I think, that are very much like, well, we have to feed the algorithm and we have to feed the reaction videos and we have to do that, which, again, nothing wrong with reaction videos, nothing wrong with finding your music from, you know, TikTok or Instagram or anything else like that. But certainly there is kind of like, I feel like what you're saying, more of an effort or like focus on trying to like be impressive and like get those eyes and everything by like shredding or anything like that, as opposed to like a guitar player playing a solo that they have phrased and like they're using their emotion and feeling the notes that are coming out. 100% hits me way better than like Malmsteen shredding most of the time. And again, I like Malmsteen, I like Satriani, I like stuff like that, but like at a time and a place, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I absolutely will go on record saying sometimes I feel like the only girl in the world who fucking loves shred guitar. I love it. I live for it. I eat it for fucking breakfast. I mean, I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the reason that like Jack's my best friend.
Yeah.
And it's like, I eat it up. I love it. But when we're talking about the algorithm and being impressive and stuff, unfortunately, I think there is something to be said for virtuosity and showing like your, we could call it your like clickbaity skill.
Yeah, your chops or whatever,
because,
you know? Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is that's like, that makes people go like, whoa, what is that? There is something to be said for displaying that from time to time, just to be like, hey, I need to reach a new audience, so let me just do the thing that I know works. But that alone will not make you stick. Like, you could be a great flash in the pan if you're good at this one thing, but at the end of the day, if you rely on that, I really think that you would basically become like you would get paraded around like an animal in a circus that can do this cool thing. But if you're creating something that means something, this is something completely different, and this is where I think longevity lies. And I think just as an artist, I think creating something that is true is so much more important than creating something that is impressive. Finding facets or different approaches to reaching those audiences, this is something that I had to learn the hard way over the years as well, because
there was no roadmap for you though, you know, right? So you had to just like learn it from doing.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, so I did this Dimmu Borgir cover, right, the Serpentine Offering, and it got 1 million views. It got more than 1 million views, so we could say it went viral. And for a long time, I thought that the only way that I will now be successful is if I'm like the black metal girl from YouTube. And the thing is, like, there's always going to be another screaming black metal girl from YouTube. And if I try to keep that, somebody will take that crown. I don't know how to say that in a good way, but I hope you know what I mean. Somebody will take that from me, and eventually there will just be another new one, maybe a younger one, maybe a prettier one, whatever, like whatever she is, she will be there. And like, not only that, but that's also completely fine and good for her when she comes. Love to see it. Also, if she wants to call me and work through the same shit that I had to work through, I'm here, because it's not easy. The problem was also because that was one thing that I did, and I felt like the next album that we put out was Emerald Seas, and I was like, nobody's gonna fucking like this because I'm known as a Dimmu Borgir girl.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do with all my, like, what are you gonna do with Succumb? What are you gonna do with any of that? It doesn't make sense. So I have since decided that if I have to play the algorithm, I will only do it my way. I will only do things that feel true to myself. I'm not going to just put out screaming videos because it makes sense, but I know that Adrien screaming does well on the algorithm. So yeah, let's put out some isolated vocal tracks of architected creation, or let's use a screaming section from one of those songs of the sing through, because I know that's going to get clicks. But I'm not just going to, I also don't have time to make stuff that's going to basically last for a week, if that, on Instagram. I need to spend my time making the stuff that matters.
It's that longevity that you said, like, so important. It's
otherwise
so important.
I'm like running with chasing a carrot that I'm never gonna get.
So we have just started.
This is also a great song.
I was gonna say Lost to the Damned. Albums that get better when you just like sit down with the lyric book, whether that's from like the CD or the vinyl or just like on Genius or whatever. So many albums I've like loved from the music or from like what I've taken from it just from like listening to it, whether like in the background or in headphones or whatever, and then gone to like read the lyrics. I'm like, holy fuck, this song was about this thing that I didn't even realize this entire time. And it was so much more like either sadder or like happier, or like I've been singing this song and it's actually really depressing. And now I know that. And this is one of those quintessential albums. I feel like you can listen to this album front to back on your own. And then when you listen to it with the lyrics, you're going to have a completely different experience. Yes,
I 100% agree. And to be honest, I mean, we touched on the concept thing a little bit. Oh, I love the like tango feel of this song. Anyway, I know the concept. I know it's there. I read the stuff. It didn't really like hit me in the heart as much as like reading the lyrics or like letting the melodies just like etch their way into my heart forever and ever. Amen. but this is definitely, as you said, one of the albums that, like, if you really sit there, think also as years went on, and like I learned the Kamelot lore and like the things that the members went through, to put all of that into context, like to put the albums into context of all of that is like also gives me a certain feeling. And I would say that as well, you're wearing an Insomnium shirt. Shadow of a Dying Sun is another one of those bands.
I love that album.
And another one of those albums. Dude, the revelation, this line of two eternities could never be so far apart that I could not bridge them together. I cry every time. I'm like a fucking baby. Yeah. I mean, I cry a lot about everything.
I was going to say, apparently it sounds like you cry a lot. You're like, you said you're a very emotional person. So yeah.
Yeah, I cry a lot. This is so beautiful. And it came out at a time where it was just, it hit me so hard. But it's a beautiful song just to listen to anyway. Wow. Anyway, now we're off topic.
Yeah, it's just like if you enjoy something, you're going to find ways to like interact with it or like fall into it or like find other things with it. And if you listen to this album and don't give a fuck about the story or whatever and just think, yeah, that was cool, then fucking awesome. Like that's cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. I had this, what you just described about the Insomnium album, I had the same thing with Silverthorn when it came out. I got the Deluxe box set edition, and it came with a book that told the story of like the sister that died and the brothers who were like sworn to secrecy, and like all the guilt and the shame and the family trauma, blah, blah, blah. Like, whew, I wouldn't have gotten it if I just listened to the album. But after reading it, I was like, this is a sad album. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Wow. And it gave me, like, as you said, a new perspective. And that is the reason Seven Spires has a lore tab on our website, because I also wrote out like the whole story of the last, our last three albums. And it's narrated. I'm actually staying with the guy who narrated it, so you can listen to it in audiobook form if you so wish. But I also really love when like a concept album can be appreciated on its own, even if the songs can just stand on their own. This was always something that I strove for when we would write Seven Spires albums, is like, I don't want somebody to have to do work to be able to enjoy the songs. I want them to be able to just listen to a song and say, oh, that's sick. Maybe you can dance to Lightbringer and not have to know what it's about or where it fits in the story, or like, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want it to, I want it to be something that you can enjoy. And if you want to dig deeper, there's new stuff in the arrangement you didn't hear. There's new lore. There's new character, whatever. That's, yeah.
Yeah. And again, goes back to that word we were talking about, longevity, right? Because like people will be, will and can be looking at that years after the albums have been released. So what I did want to ask you, so there are two things that you touched on at some point in the back that I was like, oh yeah, we gotta, I want to get on that, but because we both have ADHD, we're just like bum, 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 like bouncing around like crazy. You did mention Jack being your best friend and helping, you know, with this, and you guys have gone through this journey together. I'm curious, and maybe you've spoken about this before, but what was that meeting Jack like, and how did you bond together to get to the point where you're like, holy shit, we need to like start making music together?
I love this question. So it was, I think, my second week, because I was in the bookstore buying textbooks, you know, also a great song, by the way. But anyway, so I was buying textbooks and I got in line to pay, and he was standing in front of me. And I kind of was like, maybe I'll look around a little bit more. And then I saw that he was standing there, and I was like, I'll just get in line now. This guy looks cool. He had like shoulder length, still brown hair at this point. He was wearing a brown leather jacket. I was wearing a Nightwish shirt from the Imaginarium tour. Def Leppard was playing. He had a 7-string on his back. And I don't remember who started talking to who, but I just like, sometimes my mom says, when you know, you know. And I saw this and I was like, that's my best friend for the rest of my life. There he is. And so we were talking. I was like, you know, I just moved here from England, and I have these songs, and I want to make like a symphonic metal band, blah, 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 and in the vein of Nightwish. And he was also super into that same album, Imaginarium. So we talked about it a little bit. I gave him my business card. He paid for his stuff and left the building. And I thought, like, I'll never see this man again. Also, he was 17, and he was already like in his third semester. So he got in when he was 15. The fucking genius that he is. What a bastard.
Fuck.
Anyway, so I paid and I left the building. He was standing outside, like waiting. I think that was when I gave him my business card, and I just remember like being happy that he waited so I could like give him my information. And so like either that night or the next day or something, he wrote to me on Facebook when Facebook was still like for young people.
Yeah.
And I remember being mad because he wrote, "Let me know if you ever get the rest of your band together." And I was like, "Bitch, what do you mean if? I'm Adrienne Cowan. There's no if I get my shit together." But I was like, all right, he doesn't know. That's fine.
Amazing.
And so I basically like we met and we all instantly knew that we had to make art together. And here we are, still doing it.
Yeah, I love that. So kind of like it feels like there's so many fortuitous moments, just even in the time that we've been talking, right? You know, you're talking about listening to this album when you got into Berkeley, and then just happened to get in line behind a dude with long hair and a 7-string guitar while Def Leppard is playing, you know, and just like I don't know, it's just like life is funny that way, and like it gets back to what you're saying about just being ready and being around there, which I also will say, like, yes, there is a certain thing about being ready, but also don't wait until you feel like, oh, I'm going to be 100% ready to do this thing, because you're never going to be 100% ready to really do anything, I think, which is why I started this one, because I was like, I'm not ready to do this. Fuck it, I got to get this project started or else I'll never do it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think ready is not about having your shit together, but it's more the willingness to to like just get started, accept that you'll make mistakes along the way, and trust that you can recover from those and do better the next time.
Yeah, and embrace failure. I have always been, risk averse, have a lot of anxiety and stuff like that. Not to say that like I didn't take risks, or I haven't taken risks throughout my life or anything like that, but certainly with it's very easy for me to talk myself out of doing things when I have a good idea for whatever reason, Oh, people aren't going to like it, or oh, it's going to be too hard, or oh, it's going to be this. And I've been working as an adult self, like in my 30s to get over that and just like, look, if you want to do something, just, fucking do it, fail, learn, and all the pieces will go, because you'd rather try something and know that it didn't work rather than thinking what could have been,
Absolutely. That's tough work. So I applaud you. My mom also always told me, like, how will you know if you don't try? And basically, like, I mean, so yeah, I was living in England and also the Netherlands. So I was overseas for like 6 years while I was growing up. And that was my parents' dream. One of their dreams was to live overseas. And I saw them do that. And I didn't think about like, oh, that must have been really hard. It was just like, I knew they wanted to do that, and then they did it. So it was like, I can either chase my dreams and just not accept that they won't work out, because there is no plan B. Failure is just not an option. Or I can accept this living the same thing that isn't satisfying me until I decide to it's not going to get any different until I decide it gets different.
Yep.
And if I want something to be different so badly that I'm willing to fuck up in front of everybody, then it's going to get different. And I think that's what being ready means.
Yeah. I love that. This has been such an amazing conversation. I'm so glad that you popped on.
Yeah, same. Thanks for having me. What song are we on, actually?
We are on the last one, actually. We are on Three Ways to Epica. Dude, we just went through, we got deep in the weeds on some like deep shit, Adrienne. So like, we're on the...
This always happens, sorry.
No, seriously, don't apologize. Drums in here. It's like, all right, we're going to get, this is the like, all right, everybody, start the circle pit. I know you're listening to Kamelot, but start the circle pit. Let's go.
But also these like, the like string hits, I like hear this all the time in like disco,
Yeah.
So it's like funny to hear that. But yeah, anyway.
Children of Bodom did that a lot. That was a formative band for me, but the Jan doing the ding, 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 ding on like with the orchestra hit.
In Bodom After Midnight.
Yes.
Or Angels Don't Kill.
Both of them, like they did that especially with their first like 3 or 4 albums. It was just like everywhere, just like, yeah, give me more of that, give me more of that. I love it.
Yeah, me too. They were a formative band for me as well. Back when I wasn't as much of a singer, but I was still like a keyboardist. I was like getting into metal, and I found Children of Bodom, and I was watching these videos of like, damn, Alexia Alejo's like an incredible performer, amazing guitar player. I need to work with somebody like this, but I can't sing. Can't sing. I was like, I couldn't scream, so how could I possibly be in a metal band? But
Yeah.
I was an okay keyboardist, and then I was like, you can have keyboards in metal? Wow, amazing. And so then I was like, Jan Weerman, my hero, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And this was, yeah, it was the first time. Bodom After Midnight was the first time I heard a keyboard solo in metal, and that was the first time that I was like, maybe I could do this.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
They were my first concert, actually. It was Evergrey, Children of Bodom, Iced Earth headlining, 2004.
Wow.
It was a small thing. Of course, now, like, they're Iced Earth was one of my favorite bands for the longest time, Adrien, and then, you know, all the shit happened, and that I'll have a long conversation about that one of these days when someone's like, dude, I want to listen to fucking Something Wicked This Way Comes. Like, I don't know. Yeah, but
can we?
Yeah, a buddy of mine gave me he's like, oh, they're gonna be playing this show. Here's Hatebreeder. And that album changed my life. Like, I'd never heard anything like that before. So same big formative moment for me. It feels like so fucking, that's 20 years ago. Oh my God.
It's not 10, it's 20.
Oh my God.
When I was I checked this album that we're listening to right now, just do a little homework. It had been a while. And I was like,
yeah,
2003? What the that was more than 20 years. No. Dude,
yeah.
I was also talking to somebody about Imaginarium, and they're like, oh yeah, old school Nightwish. And I was like, don't you fucking dare call that old school.
Yes.
No. Stop. Is it old school? I remember watching interviews of like musicians that I looked up to when I was in high school, and they were talking about all these bands from the 80s that they loved and grew up on. And that was like 20, 30 years ago at the time that I was watching it.
Yep.
And now.
Yeah, I had this realization maybe sometime last year, Adrien, where I was like, you know, I grew up in the 2000s metalcore scene, right? So it's like from End of Heartache to now, I think is longer than End of Heartache to like Somewhere in Time by Iron Maiden or something like that. The march of time goes on. It waits for no one.
It's true. And it's alarming. And I feel like, I mean, it makes sense as I get older, it goes faster, but it's, a year used to feel like an eternity because I only had 5 of them. And now I have almost 30, and they go back faster because that's what happens. Is the album over?
The album is over. It just faded out and went away. It is a quick 52 minutes, and I don't know if that's because of we were talking about like the pacing and everything like that, and I don't know if that's because of the way they set up the interludes to keep everything moving. But it just like, oh my God, like it's just there and gone in a flash, and then all of a sudden you've been listening to Kamelot for an hour.
Yep. Another thing that I love about this album is I never feel exhausted from it. Like, you know, sometimes due to the pacing, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I know they're double bass song with like machine gun kicks, which I love, by the way. Please, like, I don't want to go on record saying I hate blast beats because that's totally not true. But the pacing of this album means that I have time to breathe. I have time to like let my heart like untense before we go to the next one, and then I'm like, oh, not again.
Yeah, no, that's my biggest issue with a band like Dream Theater, which I don't dislike in any way, but my analogy with them is like it's like trying to eat a 72-ounce steak. You know, like the first 6 ounces are great and delicious, and you know that the rest of it is going to be just as good, but you're fucking full after like 4 or 5 songs in there. Which I'm gonna probably staypuftmetal@gmail.com if you want to yell at me for talking shit about Dream Theater if you want. I don't. I've seen them live. They're fine. I don't dislike the band. It's just a fucking lot. And this album and this band doesn't feel like that. It's just like not overstuffed, you know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a very nice. Oh, I was gonna say consistency, as if it's a food to eat. I guess because we're talking about steak.
Yeah, I did actually. My meds make it hard for me to eat. I don't know if it's the same way for you, for your idiot meds. They, appetite. So I actually had eggs this morning. But I haven't eaten lunch. So Monday I made dinner and then immediately put it from the stove into the fridge because I was like, I made it just in case I got hungry. Nah, we'll try again tomorrow. It's not good.
Damn, I don't have it that bad, but it definitely, I have some of that. But that's the only side effect because everything else is working great. I can actually focus. Can you imagine? Wow. I can get things done. I'm not like rotting in bed all day. in exhaustion, I can just like get up and like have a nice mood. Wow.
Yeah, feeling
the
the
bare
pressures of all the
minimum
things that that you have to do and everything like that. Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that a few months after I got medicated, I started this project. You know what I mean? Like, it really was able to cut through a lot of the stuff and help me focus on the things that I actually want to do instead of the things that I feel like I should be doing or am expected to do or anything
Yes,
like that.
and feeling guilty that you aren't doing any of them because you're too exhausted and paralyzed by
that's
the
where
weight.
that's where a lot of my depression from the past couple of years has come from, because I feel like I need to be doing a lot more that I'm not doing, and then I wouldn't do it, and then I get more depressed, and there's just like a cycle and a cycle. So
Do you have days where like you feel like you could kill God and become him, and then you do like the entire week's worth of work in like 2 days, and then you're exhausted the rest of the time?
honestly, that kind of happens to me on like an hour by hour basis sometimes.
Okay.
It's not as bad anymore, but there's some times where, like, you know, I'll have a couple of hours where like I can do everything, like all the dishes done, laundry done, housework done, writing done, interview transcriptions done, you know, like all of this stuff done. And then other days where it's like, well, I did my laundry and it's been sitting there for about 3 weeks, and in fact, it's starting to become dirty laundry again because I've just been picking out of the clean clothes pile. So yes, very much I do feel that. So it's good to know that I'm not the only one.
You certainly are not. And in fact, you have reminded me that I have wet laundry sitting in the machine waiting to be hung up or dried. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I would have hated if you had left for your trip and then come back however many weeks later it was to just like stanky, moldy, crusty laundry still in the washer. Well, Adrienne, thank you so much again for listening to this. Do you have any parting words or any like summations of this album or anything to say that to anyone who has started to like Kamelot or wants to get into Kamelot, or like, oh, okay, where do I go next after this?
I would just say good luck and welcome. And yeah, I feel like you can't really go wrong with their discography. And if you like this, you'll probably like the next one and the one before it. And I mean, I don't want to dictate what someone should listen to, but I'm so thankful for this album and for the what it meant to me in those formative years and the way that it helped me realize myself, I guess, which I didn't realize until we had this discussion. And I guess
so in that case, it's still helping you learn about yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, I guess in the theme of this reflective self-discovery, I would just reiterate: send the email. Don't be afraid to fuck up. Keep your business cards on you, or whatever, in case you
always get in line behind someone with a 7-string guitar.
Can't go wrong.
Can't go wrong. Well, Adrienne, that's an amazing way to leave it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And when this comes out, the new album will be out. I'm sure that I'll be talking about it before and after this segment. And as you're gallivanting across the world and everything like that, be safe, have so much fun. And I wish you all the success in the world. Congratulations on the new album and everything you've done to this point.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it a lot.
Without a doubt, one of the best conversations I think I have ever had with any artist. That was Adrienne Cowan from Seven Spires, and another huge, massive thank you for her sitting down and opening up with me. You'd probably have no idea that that was the very first time that we had ever spoken to each other. As I said I would do, I'm going to tell you to go check out A Fortress Called Home whenever you can. Seven Spires has gotten better with every single one of their records, and they have absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one. Not only do I painfully relate to the message of Almost Town, but goddamn, that song has been stuck in my head ever since it came out. It's the one that we've been spinning this episode. It'll be stuck in your head as well. Do you have any thoughts on Kamelot, on power metal, Seven Spires, or anything else that we talked about today? Shoot me a line at spinningthewax@gmail.com and share your stories with me. I will dive into some of those next episode when we chat with James McBain of Hell Ripper. That's it for this episode, y'all. Thank you so much for listening, for enjoying, for doing whatever it is that brought you here to listen to good tunes with us today. You can give us a follow on all of our socials at Spinning the Wax, and you can follow me at StayPuffed_Malo. If you liked what you heard and want to support the show, we have a Patreon page. We have a Buy Me a Coffee page. You can go and support this show. That way you will get access to the full episodes of the album, listen, new music roundups, curated playlists, live streams, and so much more. If you can't do that, I totally understand. Money is tight around these times. Inflation, am I right? Just go give us a follow on the socials, share, tell your best friends who love metal about what we're doing, and yeah, go and engage with us. Let me know who you want us to bring on this show in the future times. All right, everybody, that's all we've got for today. So until next time, stay safe, stay sane, stay heavy, stay puffed.